Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 1. Where better to start than at the end? Or where the end started, anyway. Ground Zero. Where it all came crashing down. My career first, then everything else. And I mean everything.
It's so trippy that you can see how the ruins looked before. Hi, Ma. Remember how ecstatic we were when I landed a job here? Aerospace control engineer at Faro Automated Solutions, straight out of Stanford University. Saturday, I was tossing a mortarboard. Monday, I'm an employee of the biggest corporation on Earth. Starting wage, 6 times basic. It was a dream come true, yours as much as mine. When I found out I've landed the gig, I waited until graduation day to tell you in person. You were so proud. You hugged me 5 minutes straight, laughing and crying at the same time, saying over and over, onwards and upwards, the start of great things. I thought so too. It seemed as though nothing bad would ever happen to me, to us, ever again. But bad did happen, of course. More bad than I ever knew was possible. And while I can't blame Fast for making you sick, Metallurgic gets the credit for that, I can sure as hell blame Faro for the rest. But let's talk about the end of the world later. It plays a part in this story, of course. If I hadn't found out what was coming, I wouldn't be doing this, leaving these time capsules behind. But the apocalypse isn't the story I want to tell. This is going to be about our family, about us. It's time to get going. I spent enough of my life in the shadow of this place. I've got 11 more Vantage spikes in the trunk of the Sabara I rented, and some pretty good ideas for where to sink them. So, let's get the hell away from this place and start sinking.
A Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 2. My father guest lectured here. A 300-level military history course on the age of human air power. Might as well have been teaching medieval siege tactics. I was 8 when he died.
Hi, Mom. You brought me here once to see Baba teach. I didn't know it at the time, but the class was like something out of the 20th century. He stood behind a lectern in a real space lecture hall, raising his unamplified voice to be heard by flesh and blood cadets seated in plastic chairs. This being 45 or 46, our air forces must have already been 60 to 70% automated, but the academy was still old school, literally. I suppose the quaintness of the setting fit the subject he was teaching. The age of human air power, 1909 to... The cadets probably thought the question marks were wishful thinking or willful ignorance. From their perspective, the era of the human pilot was already over, but not for Baba. I can still see the medals he kept in that drawer in the bedroom, the inscriptions in Sanskrit. Touch the sky with glory. You said one meant. Even as a commodore in the IAF, he kept flying. He still remembered what it was like to sit in a cockpit with his hand on the stick and his finger on a trigger. And that's how he died, June 5th, 2048. At the funeral, some Metallurgic International rep said we should be proud he died defending free markets. Even then, I knew that was a lie. He died defending M International's claim on a tantalum mine. That's what he died for. And why stop the truth-telling there? Really, he died because M International wasn't yet rich enough to afford a fluffy automated fleet, because it wasn't cost-effective to upgrade a military surplus, Razorwing with improved electronics warfare gear. He died because human combat pilots were just as obsolete as the crates they put them in, and just as expendable. When he spiraled into the jungle, our family crashed with him. For weeks, you couldn't get out of bed, and then came the hospital, me staying with neighbors. Even after you recovered, even when you said all the right things and promised we'd be okay, I didn't believe it. Something had broken between us. I felt like an orphan, and nothing seemed to matter anymore, which is how I lived for the next 7 years, until it almost killed me.
The Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 3. I was 13 when I broke in and vandalized this place. Me and that kid, I think his name was Star. It was my first arrest. A real banner day for the Mahdi family. What a messed up kid I was.
Hi, Ma. Like me, Star was a problem kid, but he wasn't really smart enough to get into trouble on his own. I didn't tell him my real motivations, just made breaking into the museum and vandalizing it sound like a fun thing to do high on Duster. I was only 13, but my combined interest in tech and drugs had already acquainted me with the basics of hacking security systems. I used a jammer to bypass a window alarm, and then I got to work. I toppled hollow exhibits, smashed dioramas, yanked display panels off the walls, and smashed those too. I forgot all about Star until he yelped about flying glass. He was just standing there, holding his cheek, staring at me with big, scared eyes, whining about how this was crazy and I was going to get us arrested. He was right about the arrest. Getting caught was part of my plan, but wrong about the crazy. My one-boy orgy of destruction wasn't some kind of drug-soaked psychotic frenzy, it was a calculated attack. Not on the museum, on White. You'd started dating White a few weeks before, and I didn't like him. I wanted him gone. When you had him over for dinner, one of the many boring things he droned on about was how he served on the board of the museum and oversaw its technology purchases. Anyway, as I was saying, Star was right to think we were going to get arrested. It went down quick. Star began screaming about how he was burning all over, and next thing I knew, I was face down in the mud of expanding foam. The police bots never even warned us. Compared to Star, I got off easy. I'd never been on the business end of a microwave gun, but they say it hurts like hell. I was still picking bits of that foam out of my hair a week later though. Fines and damages came to 18 months of basic income, so it wasn't just shame that my actions brought down on the family, but financial catastrophe too. Which is why the plan backfired. I didn't push White away, I handed him a golden opportunity. He stepped in and paid the bill, and it was only another month or two before you got engaged. It's weird, but lately I've been dreaming about that night. I keep seeing that first projector I toppled, watching that hologram of a pioneer woman slew sideways and spin to the floor like a bowling pin as the emitter crashed over. A zap and a flicker and she was gone. History shorting out, kinda like now. I wonder if anyone will survive to build museums about us.
A Vantage. I can use my focus here.
A Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 4. It's hard to believe Metallurgic International used to be headquartered in this dreary old ziggurat. Wyatt's office was on the second floor from the top. If Emmett had a policy against workplace romances, he probably wrote it.
Hi, Ma. Looking back, it's almost comical how much I detested White. I hated everything about him, his lumpy face, his bad skin, his always calm voice, his out-of-style suits, and especially his stupid cowboy name. I don't care how badly you want to assimilate, there is never any excuse for naming your kid after a gunfighter. I couldn't believe you would replace my Baba, a decorated combat flyer, with a corporate drone. So I made it as hard for you as I could. I was beyond cruel. I accused you to your face of only being interested in White for his money. Called you, my own mother, a gold digger and worse. Refused to attend the wedding, then got myself arrested the night before just to cinch the point. It took me years to understand the obvious. Of course you married him for his money. For my sake, not yours. Before White, the job you were working didn't even cover food and rent. When you didn't get overtime, we slipped deeper in debt or went hungry. You literally couldn't afford to spend time at home, let alone pay for childcare or rent a nanny bot. Meanwhile, your son was out of control, a truant and a thief, not even out of junior high and already a drug addict. If you'd only had yourself to worry about, I think you would have politely refused White's interest. You were no stranger to hardship. Compared to what you went through getting out of Kolkata in 2037, simple poverty probably seemed like a cakewalk. You knew how to survive. But your son didn't. I was headed nowhere, at ramming speed. You married White to save me, for the stability and opportunities his money could provide. It wound up working, but not as smoothly as you hoped. Before I could be saved, I had to die first. But that's a story for the amphitheater.
The Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 5. The Grey Swarms opened for Turtle Smash the night I OD'd here. Or so the police report said, anyway. I was 15 years old. When I woke in the hospital, 2 days later, your face was the first thing I saw.
Hi, Mom. I don't remember anything about the concert, the bands, the music, the crowd. I was too throttled on Skydive and Snake that night to distinguish the thunder of Bashcore from the roar of blood in my head. And then I ran across a pusher who was selling Razorwing for $8 a tab. That's right, Razorwing, a certain designer stimulant named after a certain late 30s fighter craft that our family had a certain unpleasant association with. So I declined the offer, headed the ominous portent, and got the hell out of there, right? Or maybe what I did was buy 4 tabs and take them all at once. Yeah, did that. According to the police report, I went berserk and attacked the pusher, then set fire to his stash, and then went after the security drones that showed up. I didn't get far. The drones put 50,000 volts through me, which wouldn't have been such a big deal if my heart hadn't already been hammering along at triple time. The shock flat out killed me. The medbots came fast as they could, but the first glitched out and the second got hung up in the crowd, so I was dead for almost 2 minutes. And even after they revived me, my condition was touch and go on account of all the substances sloshing through my veins. When I came out of the coma, your face was the first thing I saw. You've been crying, your makeup was smudged, dark lines down your cheeks. When our eyes met, I expected you to start yelling, and weak as I was ready to yell back. Not even a coma could break my defiance. But you didn't yell. You quietly asked White to wait in the hall, then pushed your chair right up to the edge of my bed and took my hand. I wanted to jerk my hand back, but I couldn't. It wasn't the strength of your grip that stopped me, but the warmth of your hand, the gentleness with which you took mine. When you spoke, your voice was quiet, just above a whisper. When I lost your Baba 7 years ago, you were my only reason to go on living. Your gaze lifted to the medical equipment surrounding us, the tubes and blinking lights. You shook your head. Why do you live like no one loves you? Don't you realize that if you die, all my hopes and dreams, and all of the hopes and dreams of your father die with you? You reached and touched my hair, and like a thunder crack, I broke. Or maybe I was just snapping back together. I lay there sobbing for what felt like years. The whole time you never took your hand away, and I didn't either. The next day I agreed to go into treatment. I wish I could say I never picked up again, but as we both know, that's not exactly how things turned out.
Found a Vantage. Need to piece the messages together.
A Pocket Shitstorm Tour, Day 6. I was fresh out of rehab when we saw the metallurgist play the Hearts Wayfarers. The Emmett jersey looked pretty funny. Hopefully you're sorry.
Hi, Ma. So this would have been late May or early June. I was only a week or 2 out of rehab, still feeling pretty raw, pretty jangly about sober life. You'd already gone to toe-to-toe with Mr. Gerson? That jerk principal who tried to block my readmission. I was looking at 8 weeks of summer school to make up for all the courses I'd flunked, but I didn't mind. Without drugs, I didn't really know what to do with myself yet, so I welcomed the structure. The metallurgists were playing the Wayfarers, and as usual, White had box tickets. But this was the first time I'd agreed to go. Hell, it was probably the first time I'd ever agreed to do anything as a family. In retrospect, I'm surprised White was willing to bring his alien stepson to a public event so soon. I'd seen teens slug it out on Holo before, of course, but seeing it in the real was a whole other thing. The size of the machines, their speed, the way they bashed each other to pieces, it was intense. All at once, my fascination with tech, which had kind of faded as I sunk into the drugs, came roaring back. When homie Rahman, the team chief engineer, stopped by the box at halftime, I was all over him, blasting him with questions like a one-boy press conference. Looking back, it wouldn't surprise me if you took me to that game hoping to get me excited about tech before I headed into summer school. Or was it that you wanted me to catch a glimpse of corporate privilege? It was always your dream that I'd end up in engineering or business. Well, there was plenty of engineering on display when Connor 12 scored an 18-meter rocket jump, and plenty of VPs and even C levels in the box with us when we cheered the goal. Yeah, it was a setup. You knew what you were doing. Always did.
Apaka Shitstorm Tour Day 7. I was 3 months out of rehab when we went camping out here. Wyatt went to sleep early, so it was just the two of us when we stayed up and watched the Perseids. After, as we talked about the stars and space tech, I suddenly knew what I wanted to do with my life.
Hi, Mom. It was August. Summer school had wrapped, and I aced my courses, so I was heading back to 10th grade with a good head of steam. As a reward for my studies and my sobriety, you and White gave me a Fullerton Labs Astro Prodigy and took me camping to watch the Perseids at their peak. I was amped. White spent all afternoon struggling with a self-constructing shelter he'd bought for the trip, until finally he gave up and built the damn thing manually. Well, the sleeping pods anyway, while we made a fire and cooked dinner. It must have taken a lot out of him because White was nodding off at dinner and went to bed soon after. As night fell, we sat and watched the meteors streak across the sky like fingernail scratches, marveling at their abundance, laughing our delight. After an hour or so, you asked me to teach you the constellations, so I launched the Astro Prodigy and played Professor, spouting off about each star group as the drone magnified them. Later, I had it zoom in on the Odyssey, which was still being constructed in orbit back then. It was another year or two before they abandoned it. We could actually see the robots building it, zipping across the hull like little fireflies. So I jabbered about that, which got me started on yammering about the robots that Pharaoh and other corporations, even Metallurgic, had begun sending up to mine helium-3 from Luna and metals from the asteroid belt. The more I spoke about space tech, the more excited I became. But I was getting cold too. Deserts at night are like that. So I sat back down next to you and we huddled under the camp blanket. For a little while, we were quiet. I wanted to say what I was thinking, but it felt ridiculous. But then White snored explosively from inside the shelter, and we giggled. And our laughter seemed to make an opening for me to just go ahead and say it. That I, your delinquent son, who almost flunked out of high school, who nearly died of an overdose at a Bashcore concert, wanted to be an aerospace engineer and make the sorts of machines we've been talking about. Robots to gather resources in the solar system. Maybe even ones that could travel to other stars and colonize new worlds. You looked at me and smiled. Then that is what you will do. And then you looked up at the night sky and said very plainly, as though it was a simple fact, you will write the story of our family across the stars. School started the next week and I never looked back.
A pocket shitstorm tour, day 8. Holy crap. That glitched out lifter that crushed your arm and clavicle. Back before you met Wyatt. That was in a mine back beyond these falls. Oh, what a punk I was.
Ma, I can't believe I just stumbled across this place. I remembered your injury, of course. I just forgot that it happened all the way out here. This was before White, obviously, when things were really hard for us. I was 12 or 13, already smoking duster every day, and you were working all the time, stuck on the job you convinced Metallurgic to give you after they stiffed us on the death settlement. It must have been terrible, servicing mining robots in dig tunnels for 1.5 basic, but it's how you kept us fed. When the lifter injured you, the foreman said it was your fault, said the telemetry showed human error, yours. When you told me that the telemetry had been cooked, I didn't believe you. I blamed you for your injury, same as the company. What a great kid I was. I didn't understand the situation at all. Denial of comp was a financial death blow. We were days from living on the street, which is why you pushed your grievance up the ladder, up and up until finally you wound up in White's office. He ordered an investigation, which was the right thing to do, though I've always wondered just how dispassionate his decision was. The investigation proved the telemetry had been tampered with and validated your claim, and the implants and cybernetics fixed you up good as new. By all appearances, it looked like everything that had gotten broken had been fixed. Hell, another 6 months and you and White started seeing each other, so before long, even our poverty was fixed. What we didn't know, of course, that you've been... Oh, that must be a typo. What you didn't know, of course, was that you've been poisoned. Labor 6 exposure from the solvents you used to keep robot joints clear. We were still years away from knowing the long-term effects, but the damage was done. You doomed yourself working a shitty job to keep me fed and clothed, and I can't even remember a single time I thanked you for it. Screw this place.
A pocket shitstorm tour, day 9. I was setting up my tent right here when Wyatt's call came through. I came as fast as I could, but you'd already slipped into a coma. We never got a chance to say goodbye.
Hi, Mom. My plan was to go camping here after the Amos 15 launch. I've been working OT for the past 9 months, so I was pretty frazzled and figured I should take a weekend to relax before crunch started up again. I was setting up my tent when White's call came through. He said it was an emergency. I called a lift spin vert and made it to Denver General in less than 27 minutes. I was too late. He'd already slipped into a coma. I didn't understand how that could be, but when I told White to explain, he just kept choking up, waving me towards the care station. So it was a hollow doc that broke the news. Had you been diagnosed a year earlier? The adverse reactions to gene therapy and polymer vascular replacements. The 6 months of mobile dialysis. I couldn't believe you kept it all secret from me. Even at the height of crunch, I called you once or twice a week. So you just sat there, listening to me enthuse about my latest project or complain about workplace politics. And all the while you were dying? It didn't make sense. I marched back to White, cornered him, and demanded that he explain. He said that you hadn't want to distract me, that I was doing important work and needed to focus. You know, As though the latest Amos launch and the palladium and rhodium it brought back to Earth mattered more than the Ma who was already here. White kept saying how proud you were of me, even parroted that onwards and upwards phrase of yours. He said I should get back to work, that that's what you would have wanted, that he'd stay at the hospital and keep me informed. I didn't go back to work. I called in. It took arguing my way past 2 supervisors, a labyrinthine automated HR menu, a human resources AI, and an anal defensive benefits executive to activate my personal leave, but I did it. And then I sat at your bedside for the next 7 days. I kept thinking of the hospital after my OD at the amphitheater. Kept thinking that if you came out of the coma, I wanted my face to be the first thing you saw. On the 8th day, they pronounced you dead. After the funeral, I went back to work, but I wasn't really there. I kept telling myself to focus, that it was okay to be there. It was what you would have wanted after all, onwards and upwards. But my work fell behind. When my supervisor called me in for an emergency review, I told myself to play it cool, accept the criticism and promise to do better. It didn't go like that. I snapped and shouted at him, and then broke down sobbing uncontrollably. 2 minutes and 3 drones later, and I was standing outside the Pharaoh building, blinking in the sunshine, straightening my bunched up clothes. An alert on my focus indicated that I should go home for the day, then report for a disciplinary review on Monday. But I didn't go home. Another idea had risen up in my mind, already fully formed. I guess I'd already been thinking of doing it for a while. I took a lift spin to Pioneer Park. 10 minutes of asking around and a truth test to show I wasn't a cop was all it took to make a connection. I went home with the drugs, started using, and didn't stop. Duster, snake, skydive, overcast, no razor wing, at least. I didn't take calls, didn't show up for the disciplinary review on Monday morning. A friend stopped by and hammered the door until I answered. When he saw what was happening, he staged a one-man intervention. I agreed to go into treatment, but I didn't harbor any illusions. Use of personal leave was bad, but use of a psych SA leave? Career suicide. Sure, they couldn't legally fire me for it, but I've been around fast long enough to know they'd find a way. My career was over. I thought I was at rock bottom, but I was wrong, of course. I still had a long way to fall.
Apoca Shitstorm Tour, Day 10. So here's where I learned how the world would end. My second apocalypse in a year. Looks like there's a lot of construction going on now. Why would that be?
Hi, Mom. I was surprised when FAST sent me out here, and not just because the meeting was going to be held in real space. I was surprised to discover that anyone at FAST still knew I existed. When I returned to work after treatment, HR informed me I'd been reassigned to the Vantage project. It was exactly the professional death sentence I was expecting. The career equivalent of getting sent into a red zone without an environmental suit. Everyone knew Vantage was one of those doomed projects FAST kept around solely for the purpose of assigning dead-enders to them, especially head cases like me, who couldn't be summarily fired for fear of parity litigation. Month by month, management would pile losers on a lost cause, then cancel the project and lay everyone off. A ship of fools sunk with a single torpedo. Ain't wrongful dismissal if it's downsizing. I had nothing better to do, so I spent my time studying the tech. Chip design wasn't my forte, but I knew enough to admire what the engineers had accomplished with the Eternity chip. Stored data was guaranteed to last 50,000 years or more without degradation. As for Vantage itself, the project was little more than a failed marketing plan. The idea was to promote the tech by burying unlocked Eternity chips as scenic locales around the world. Public domain time capsules where enthusiasts could cache date-locked data. The project got as far as developing the spikes, portable drill applicators to sync the chips, then stalled when grass heckled encapsulates came on the market and stole Eternity's thunder. Anyway, I've been at Vantage 3 weeks when Faz unexpectedly sent me out here for a real space meeting. Me and a dead ender working a doomed project dispatched to a high security fast R&D site inside King's Peak. It didn't make sense. Security put me in a small conference room and told me to wait. It was downright claustrophobic, dim lights, bad ventilation, more like an interrogation room from one of those 90s cop vids. But what really got my attention was the noises coming through the walls, the non-stop bang and clatter of construction bots building something deep in the mountain, something big. The door opened and more doofs wearing fast badges file in. I recognized one of them, Brad Andacht, a military division's replications engineer I met when I first joined the company, but I don't think he recognized me. He stayed at the back of the room the whole time, looking distraught. I was about to ask what the hell was going on when a woman wearing a hijab walked in. She didn't introduce herself. Oh, is this Samina? But she didn't have to. Oh yeah, it's right there. It was Samina Ebadji, former lead archivist of the Odyssey, architect of the entire Homer project. Not a global celebrity by any means, but if you grew up following the Odyssey project like I did, you knew her on sight. Ebadji sat down and started asking extremely precise questions about the upper range tolerances of Eternity chips. Then she asked me to speculate about the feasibility of various upgrade paths. The interview lasted maybe 10 minutes, whereupon she thanked me for my time and left. Everyone else filed out after her. Security came for me a few minutes later and escorted me to my vert. The whole way back to Faz, I kept trying to figure what had just happened. What was Samina Ejabdi doing at a classified Pharaoh R&D site asking me questions about Eternity tech? It didn't add up. By the time I landed, I knew I wasn't going to give up until I puzzled it out. The worst that could happen was I'd get fired, and that was going to happen anyway. It took a couple of days and some geo work, but I got a fix on Brad Andacht soon enough. He was going to a different bar every night, drinking to the point of blacking out. I shadowed him until I managed to proxy his focus and dupe his net protocols. I didn't find anything strange in his financial records or media patterns. I was starting to think I'd wasted my time. Then I accessed his Dreambox account and found the journal he'd been keeping the past few weeks. It was all there. How the world would end. My first thought was, well, at least my ma didn't live to see this. My second thought was that nothing mattered anymore, which made it pretty obvious that I should kill myself. Don't think like that. I mean, he didn't, because he went to Vantage Point spiking these things down for the future, if there was one, which I don't think he'd know about it because he's barely finding out about this stuff. Would one day look back on his account on the world. I was about to say though, it's like these things are supposed to last like about 50,000 years. Why didn't Zero Dawn use them? And before I can even ask that question, well, Samina had the same idea as well.
Day 11. I came out here to die. But instead of overdosing at Wyatt's cottage, I went out walking along the water. I was standing right here when the idea hit me. And the moment it did, I knew I had to do it.
Hi, Ma. I came here with a duffel full of drugs after I found out about the plague. I had a plan, a simple one. I figured I'd spend a few days getting high, then overdose on Overcast. I guess I was still furious at White for aiding and abetting your silence. If everything had gone according to plan, my corpse would have lay rotting in the cottage for who knows how long. He would have needed to lease catastrophic cleaning bots just to scrape me off the floor. A skeletal middle finger from beyond the grave. But things didn't go to plan. For some reason, I went out walking before I got high. I trudged along the shore, thinking of all the times we walked and talked here, how I changed over the years, how you stayed the same. Whether I was a high schooler jabbering about AP classes or a university student gossiping about my professors or a fast engineer pontificating about payload yields, you were always there, always listening, always interested, and always encouraging me, of course, spurring me on, onwards and upwards. But now here I was, an abject failure, standing alone on this beach, as all around me children chased playing bots across the sand, sunbathers basked, families splashed in the water, or zipped past on old-timey boats, utterly oblivious to the mechanical terrors that would soon consume them. Brief moments in the sun, doomed to end in horror and amount to nothing. All your love and devotion, all the sacrifices you made to support my success, what had that come to? Failure. And at such cost. We never even got a chance to say goodbye. But even if I hadn't failed, if I had gone on succeeding, would that have been any better? The whole time I was clawing my way up the ladder at FAS, the company's military division was creating the tech that would end the world. I served the same master. Success was a ladder to nowhere. It just took falling off and landing on the Vantage project to see it. I don't know why, but the irony of that had never hit me until I was standing on this beach. That it was only because I failed and been assigned to Vantage, an abandoned time capsule project, that I'd found out that the world was ending. Irony? More like a cosmic joke. Why, then, did the realization hit me like an inspiration? I had access to the tech. I knew I could do it. Sure, in the end, it would probably all just come to nothing, like everything else. But for 50,000 years or more, whatever data I left behind would still be there. It wouldn't be much, but it wouldn't be nothing either. I went back to the cottage, stashed the drugs, called a Lisbon into town. If I was going to make an end of the world tour, I figured I might as well do it in style. So I leased a Sabara and rode that to FAS. I let myself into the lab, signed out 12 Vantage spikes for testing, put them in the trunk of the Sabara, and the rest is history. It was less than 2 weeks ago. Feels like forever. When I started the tour, I figured I'd come back here and pick up where I left off, get high, then dead. But the first thing I did when I got back was incinerate the drugs, all 2.5 months of salary worth. So that bridge to oblivion has literally been burned. I don't know how I'm going to die, but it can't be like that. I know how you felt about me and drugs. However it happens, I can at least promise you this. I will die clean. I still have one last spike to sink, one final stop on the Grand Mystery Tour. I'll see you there.
Day 12. As we watched the booster arc up into the night sky, riding a pillar of flame, you took my hand, squeezed it, and said, "You have written the story of our family across the stars."
Hi, Ma. Last stop. After this, I'll have said everything I need to. It was just a routine launch, but for us it might as well have been Apollo 11. It was my first payload, a seeker/extractor with an upgraded propulsion system I designed. The vehicle was destined for M89282, an asteroid rich in ruthenium and tungsten, a metallurgic claim as it happened, a family event through and through. So there we stood in the open air as night fell and the stars came up, and of course I was thinking of that night years before when we watched the Perseids together and talked and dreamed of this very moment. You were thinking of it too, because when the booster launched, as it rose into the sky on its jet of flame, you took my hand and said, "You have written the story of our family across the stars." Even then, I knew it wasn't true. The vehicle was headed for a rock, not a star. It was a routine launch, not some voyage of discovery. But my heart was too full to quibble. I just smiled and squeezed your hand back. It was the finest moment of my life, you and me, Ma. Onwards and upwards, the start of great things. But after you died and I broke down, the meaning of that night changed. Everything that had seemed wonderful seemed to turn rotten and false. It seemed false because it was false. I'd never written anything across the stars. Sure, I'd hoped to work on a project like that, a deep space probe or a colony ship, but it never happened, and now that my career was over, it never would. And then, when I found out about the plague, the memory haunted me even worse. Because it wasn't just me who failed to write a story across the stars, you see. It was all of us, our entire species. All our innovations, all our tech, all our striving, and it came to zero. I've been looking up at the stars a lot, Mom, and the only story I see written across them is that we are small and insignificant and will soon disappear, with hardly a trace left behind. It's a hard story, and I don't much like it. So I guess maybe what I've been trying to do these past 12 days is tell a different story. Not a big story, written across the stars, but a tiny one, written across the humble earth of the only world we ever got to know. I have no reason to think that anyone or anything will survive to read it. But whatever happens or not, the truth of the story remains. That once upon a time, on a planet called Earth, there lived a boy named Bashar, who loved his mother very, very much. Goodbye, Mom. I love you. Fuck. Hold on. I'm like on the verge of crying. I don't know if the mic can pick up the tone in my voice is changing, but I'm like almost about to cry. Bashar Mati, son of Amal and Behas Mati, stepson of White Mahante, 24 November 2064. Okay. Fuck. I did not know the story was gonna be this deep. Okay. I forget how, because this was a long time ago now. It feels like forever, doesn't it? I don't remember if it was like the first Vantage Point or the second or maybe even the third when I realized that there was a story behind this, and I was like, okay, I'll wait until I acquired all the Vantage Points and then I'll read it from start to finish. And then of course somebody commented that it would have been nice to see these Vantage Points in person as well, so I was like, okay, that's perfect. I can go from location to location in chronological order. As you can see, it's already nighttime. Spent the whole in-game day just traveling from location to location. So I really hope I didn't miss any, because I didn't go in like clockwise or counterclockwise order. I jumped all across the map. So I hope I got them all. Anyways, I was like, okay, I can do that. I can go from location to location, look at the Vantage Point, and then read. So I never read the story as I started collecting them. Like once I knew that there was a story behind these things, I was like, okay, I'll just collect them and wait until the end to read it all from start to finish. So I had no idea that this was going to be such a like heart-touching story that almost made me cry. Like, what the hell? I don't think I've ever cried reading. There have been like some movies that kind of made me teary-eyed, but it wasn't until I actually started playing games, like these story-driven games, where I actually started to cry. Because in Detroit Become Human, I broke down more than a couple of times playing that game, and now I was on the verge of doing the same here. Thankfully I didn't, because I have such an ugly cry. Like, some people can still look so aesthetically beautiful with tears coming down their face. Like, how do you like they have no bad angle, but with me, no, it's terrible. You guys do not want to see that. So thankfully I composed myself, but damn, did that get me close, because it's so damn sad. Like, I think many of us, which is unfortunate, can somewhat relate to this story. I was a bit unruly, and more notably, I was very, very ungrateful. As a child, I didn't know how the real world worked. We grew up pretty poor. The house that we're living in right now, it's been 2.5 years since we've been living here. Prior to that, we were living for like nearly a decade at a house that we were renting because we couldn't afford to buy a house. And then before that, we were living in a mobile home, a 2-bedroom mobile home for 3 of us. Yeah, it kind of sucked. But as I started getting older, I started to realize that, we have a roof over our heads. Like there was a point in my life when my mom bought me a Super Nintendo that she found at a yard sale, and it came with like 10 games. And I remember being so damn ungrateful because it wasn't the latest console and blah blah blah. And I could only imagine how my mom felt that she thought of me, bought what she could afford, thinking it was going to get me happy, and then seeing how shit of a son I was. Like, I'm on the verge of crying just thinking of how stupid I was. If I could go back in time, I'd slap myself. Because my mom tried. She worked 2 jobs. She was trying. And then I, too, started going down a spiral that it felt like maybe I wouldn't be able to get myself out of. But fortunately, I did. I had people who loved me, just like this guy's mom. My mom was there for me. And I'm in a better place now. And I also started writing down in a journal because of his thought process too. Like, what if we died? What are we going to leave behind? Okay, if he leaves down these spikes, no one might read them in the future. I mean, little did he know Aloy would. So his story, his life lives on in our memory. It managed to survive through time. Might not have gone through space, but it went through time. And in a way, he's still alive through his vantage points. And so that's what I started writing down in my journal, just like jotting out my thoughts and stuff. I don't know, makes me feel better because maybe 100 years from now, someone finds it in a locked box and then they open it and they start reading it, never knowing who I am or how I looked, but they see my story in the journal and maybe it might touch them the way this story touched me. So it's like, damn, this is kind of it's sitting a little close to home. Maybe that's why I was on the verge of crying, because it kind of reminds me of me. Like I said, I never did drugs, but still, I wasn't in a great place. All right, I'm going to actually take a really quick break so I can get some water, and then I have to tend to my chickens really quick, but I'll be back and then I'll read off the last data points that I want to read. So we're not done just yet. Okay, I am back now. I tended to the chickens. They're all nice and fed. Now we can get on with the game. So there is this audio data points that I wanted to listen to first. The one that I picked up at Gaia Prime. It was hidden, okay? When you go to Elizabeth's shrine, there is a tunnel in that room. And then you go through 2 doors that you have to pry open just to get to this thing. It was really, really hidden, okay? I did my best trying to find them all, and to my credit, I kind of did, except for just this one.
All right. Let's start over from Eleuthia 1.
Running integrity tests. Dr. Brochard Klein, may I speak outside protocol?
I suppose so.
There's no one to stop you?
Doctor, you are fatigued. You have been logging abnormal sleep cycles. Are you suffering from depression?
Well, I am trapped in a science facility for the rest of my life. How about you?
In a time slice of a quadrillion operating cycles, 10,000 are involved with processing the loss of Dr. Sobek. I have considered quarantining these processes. Do you think that would be wise?
I'm not a psychologist, Gaia, or an AI scientist. No. It is natural. At least in the context of the work you and I have accomplished, which begs the meaning of the term natural. She was your creator, the patron saint of this crazy endeavor, Our Lady of the Fervent Hypothetical.
Even assuming a string of significant failure combinations, Zero Dawn's chances of success are greater than the hypothetical.
It's called a manner of speech, Gaia. Take a note.
Well, Gaia was learning to mourn. She did gain empathy, feelings, all that, to ensure that life will go on. I mean, maybe a little too much, according to Tate, considering how she and Hades conflicted with one another. But it's so crazy to think that in this universe there's an AI that can feel and think for itself. Alright, so with all the audio data points archived, all the hologram data points archived, we got 3 missing, but according to the guide that I was following, it said that these 3 should reveal themselves later. So we still have this one, which I read, right? I'm pretty sure I already read this in the last episode. Yeah, this one that is under repair. So they're all still under repair. I have to wait for that. And then I got all the data points around the world. So there are a handful that I would like to read that caught my attention. Either because I thought they were funny or they had some information I wanted to read on camera. Let me start with Mourn mosquitoes? Kasabian. Won't someone think of the mosquitoes? Ryan Kasabian, only guy on the planet upset about mosquitoes being driven to extinction. March 18, 2060. Blood Moon Star and Human Attention Vacuum, Ryan Kasabian is very disappointed in you, world. How dare you celebrate the deaths of billions of innocent mosquitoes like that? Ashamed yet? Well, the 32-year-old actor spleen vented while accepting the less than coveted award for baddest vampire hero at the Edgescape Choice Awards. Yeah, we forgot that was a thing too. An entire species exterminated in the blink of an eye, Kasabian pouted. If we are the planetary stewards we claim to be since the clawback, why are we doing a lousy job about it? The lousy job Kasabian is referring to there? The eradication of mosquito-borne diseases, both old standards like malaria, Zika, West Nile, encephalitis, and new die-off era emergent viruses like Jornu and Tripura. Yeah, world, lousy job getting rid of those bugs and the plagues they carried. Good thing we've got the guy from that lunar mining base overrun by sexy vampires, Hollow, to remind us of our crimes against mosquitoes. There's a bloodsucker pun in there somewhere. Look, I too would be ecstatic, elated even, if mosquitoes were no longer a thing. Them and flies, I get it. They are needed in the natural world order. They serve their purposes. But it seems like we can do just fine without mosquitoes or flies, right? I get that flies are there to help stuff decompose faster. but stuff will decompose eventually. Plus, there's other animals that can help do the job as well. It seems like flies really aren't needed. We could get rid of those pesky buggers as well. And then with mosquitoes, what do they do? Some of them pollinate flowers, but the keyword is some, right? I'm pretty sure it's not all mosquitoes. Plus, in a world like this, couldn't they just make artificial bees? I don't even remember if I read a data point talking about that or not. Or was it Detroit Become Human that had the artificial bees? I don't remember, but that could be a thing. If there's not enough bees to go around, maybe you could do something that could emulate a bee and get the job done. We don't need mosquitoes. This guy, Kasabian, he definitely deserves this very satirical critique on him, because how dare he chastise us for getting rid of those very annoying sounding insects. They're insects, right? Just buzzing around your ear going and then sucking up your blood and leaving diseases behind. All right, now we have RP Greet. This is definitely the best free dating app in the Pharaoh store. It's a lonely world out there. Sometimes you need a little high-tech help to find your one and only. After wading through the ocean of apps in the dating and romance category, we're confident we found the coolest, if maybe also the nerdiest, one. RP Greet grasps the familiar mechanics of role-playing games onto the messy, chaotic world of romance, and the result is a lot more fun than you might expect. Users gain or lose experience by going on successful, or not so much, dates. Like, this would have been perfect for Saikuno, you know. He doesn't have enough XP or something along those lines. He just needs to level up a little more, and maybe he'd gain the confidence to talk to women.
I'm so sorry for being late. I don't usually go on dates. My XP bar's a little low.
I mean, little did any of us know, he actually was a player behind the scenes, but that's another story. After each date, users are invited to give their prospective partner one of many ratings, such as Orc, minus 25 XP, NPC, minus 10 XP, starting character, plus 10 XP, or multi-class wizard thief of hearts, 25 plus XP. The app is a little intimidating for users in the early going. Who wants to date a level 1? But it doesn't take long to pick up a few levels and earn a little more attention. RP Greet's augmented reality interface is pretty fantastic as well. Activate your focus, open the app, and suddenly, the stats of everyone in your vicinity with an RP Greet account are displayed right there next to them in real space. So if you're looking to strengthen your flirt game at the calf shop, RP Greet's got you covered. Tech Breakfast is legally required to notify readers that the above content was paid for by RP Greets and does not necessarily reflect the actual opinions or experiences of Tech Breakfast or its contributors. This, I don't know, sounds a little convoluted. Maybe I'd give it a try. I mean, not that I've done it myself, but I had a friend once try the dating app Boo, because it's supposed to be for gamers or nerds in general. Like I said, I wouldn't know about it. I just heard of it. So maybe I'd be interested in something like this too. Might as well. Everyone knows Tinder is a lost cause. Do your part. If I have to listen to that rancid "Do Your Part for Zero Dawn" song one more time, I swear I'm gonna stab out my eardrums before that melody can fester in my ear canals. It is not inspiring. It is not stirring. It is dreck that makes me want to kill myself before the robots even get a chance. I would literally give my life right now to kill the asshole who composed that goddamn thing. Ugh! Can't this apocalypse at least have a decent soundtrack? This makes me want to listen to the song even more. By the description alone that this guy provides, I can only imagine how Like it's a song that was designed to be catchy, so it sticks in your mind, so that it reinforces the idea, do your part for Zero Dawn over and over and over again, that you can't help but want to stab yourself in the ears. I imagine Baby Shark. Is that the name of that song? It's been a long time. Thankfully, it's no longer in style, as many things. It came and faded away. But it's the Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark doo 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 doo. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that again. But you get what I mean. It's such an annoying song, but it stays in your head because it's so simple and it's repetitive. And I think maybe that's what this song is. It has to be to hammer the point home to do your part for Zero Dawn. I wish I could hear this. And now we got your gift from Teresa Sanders to Sarah Peterson. Hi, Sarah. I want to thank you for your gift, but not for the reasons you might think. A little recap. I told you that I needed to enlist and fight this fight, that I'd be a coward not to do so. In response, you called me disloyal and shut me out for days. So I do as I said I do. If you'll remember, I was the one in this relationship who actually did that and joined up. Did I know I was leaving you behind? Yes. Did I feel bad about it? Yes. Then, 2 days into basic, I get a package from you. I open it. There's a gift inside. What's the gift? A stuffed armadillo. A stuffed armadillo? Am I kidding? No, not kidding. Attached to said armadillo is a note. What's the note say? Does it actually say, I'm sorry, hon, armadilling with some personal issues? Yes, I regret to inform you that the note does in fact say that. As though that, whatever you care to call that, begins to explain and justify your behavior. Which is why I want to thank you. Talking to other enlistees, hearing them describe their girls and guys, I started to see us through a rose-colored filter. I was actually starting to wonder if I'd made the wrong choice. But that package and what it contained, what a wallop between the eyes that was. All doubts extinguished. You're an utter idiot, Sarah. A trivial, empty-headed imbecile. Given the choice between fighting killer robots and spending another day with you, hun, that ain't no choice at all. Don't contact me again, Teresa. I don't know their relationship. I don't know how bad it was. Because I highly doubt it was just this one single argument that cemented this fact to Teresa about Sarah. Like, it had to have been like fight after fight after fight that just piled on. That it finally just hit her. I have to get out of this relationship. But if like, because she said that she was going to enlist. A lot of people don't want their significant other to do something like that because it's dangerous, because there's a strong probability you might not make it back home in one piece, if you make it back at all. And then what? So, like, while it's not guaranteed that you won't make it back home, like, the chances are significantly higher that something fatal might happen to you. Because it's in the line of work. You're out there fighting. So, yeah, I would definitely be, like, pissed off if my significant other, thankfully I don't have one, so I guess headache free. But if I did have one, like, I'd be pissed off if they decided to enlist, even if they told me they would. And I don't know, what did they say that they did as well? That they shut me out for days. So they ghosted them, not talked to them for a while. Like, if I had a girlfriend and she did that to me, I don't know. I don't think I'd be as mad as Teresa is. That's why I'm saying I feel like it might have been a culmination, accumulation. I think that's the word, of like fights after fights that just piled on. Because if I got a stuffed armadillo that said, I'm sorry, hon, armadilling with some personal issues, I would be like, it would make my heart melt. Be like, oh my god, I can't stay mad at her. Okay, bygones are bygones. It was just one silly fight, anyways. You know, I would be happy if I got a stuffed armadillo, but I feel like there's more to this story. No subject from Grant Rowe to Mom. Dear Mom, I heard some guys jabbering about a breakthrough on the Atlantic today. Said Southern Jersey, Philly, Northern Delaware is just gone. New York City nearly surrounded. My CEO won't confirm or deny, and since we stopped using OGs, I can't check the feeds. But everyone's talking about it, and all I know is, if it's true, Vinland was right in the middle of it, and that means you were in the middle of it. In which case, I'm writing to a goddamn ghost like a goddamn fool. Screw this. Screw Enduring Victory and Zero Dawn and everyone and everything else. Honorable service, my ass. I should have stayed home so you didn't have to die alone. Grant. And this is what I was talking about like a long time ago when we learned about Enduring Victory and what its purpose was for. To just buy Zero Dawn time it needed to complete, and how the lie had to be there. Because if people found out the truth, a lot of people would be like him. Why fight in this pointless fight, they would say. Why not just be with my loved ones? Even if it means we're going to die, better be surrounded by the ones you love instead of in the middle of a battlefield with people you barely know. Well, assuming you survive the fights, then I guess you get to know your brothers and sisters in arms a lot better. But still, it's not the same as family, you know? I feel like a lot of people would have had this mindset, so enduring was a lie that was necessary, unfortunately. And then there are 3 Odyssey related files that I did not read because obviously I did not find them. So let's get to them. First is Odyssey Injustice. Editorial. What does Odyssey say about who we value? March 8, 2041. If you've been paying attention to all the public outrage in response to last week's announcement of the Odyssey project, you'd be forgiven for mistaking the proposed colony ship for a gold-plated space chariot that the world's trillionaires are conspiring to use to escape the climate catastrophe, leaving the rest of us to choke and drown and starve while the Richies rocket off to Sirius. One Earth spokesman, Azar Safavi, went so far as to say the ability to drive the planet nearly to extinction and then even consider leaving it behind is the sole provenance of the obscenely, criminally rich. Dander up, hackles raised? You bet. Only problem is Azar's got it all wrong. The Odyssey is not a cosmic escape pod for CEOs. It's a rare instance of long-term thinking in the midst of our collective disaster. Even if every aspect of the project goes swimmingly, which we all know will never happen, the ship won't even launch from orbit until 2080, by which time, let's face it, our species will either have found a way to reverse the climate or will have perished. Back when the only threat to life was climate change, and not the bio-consuming machines that threaten all life on Earth. Nor is the Odyssey a vanity project founded by the preposterously wealthy. It is, rather, a yet again rare instance of an international project co-founded by 5 nations: US, the Western European Alliance, India, China, and Japan. Yes, the project will accept donations by wealthy individuals, but donations will not buy a seat on the ship. The vast majority of the Odyssey's human passengers will not be old, rich, and smug, but very young, as in embryonic. The entire point of the project is to spawn a human population on the exoplanet of blah 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 blah. Well, we already kind of knew this, right? Because I'm pretty sure I read another data point. There were 3 Odyssey data points by Maker's Ruins, and I found one of them. And I'm pretty sure that's where they talked a bit about this too, where, yeah, they were going to send embryos and a like skeleton crew of sorts that can operate the ship, pointed to like I guess Sirius is where they're going. Sirius is a planet, an actual planet, right? Sirius X in our galaxy. I think I've heard it before, but I don't remember. I don't think it's another galaxy. I don't think that these people would have the technology to do that just yet. Going to another planet within the galaxy, I would suspend my disbelief, but I don't think they could go to a different galaxy, right? Unless they were really trying to interstellar this and go into like a black hole. But I don't think they were, right? Anyways, the point is, yeah, they were supposed to go colonize a new planet, say goodbye to the old, start afresh with a new generation of humans. Yeah, the project was supposed to be completed around 2080, but thanks to the freaking Pharaoh robots that decided to glitch out and consume all life on Earth, they had to expedite the project, and then they launched prematurely, and I mean, Zero Dawn survived and was a success, so yay. But yeah, the Odyssey was not supposed to let the wealthy escape. Odyssey drives ready. Mumbai, April 17, 2051. Speaking at a press conference today, Odyssey India Chief Science Officer Jaswinder Prajapati, I butchered that name, announced that all components of the colony ship's fusion propulsion units have been printed, tested, and are ready for installation. We are ready to build the Odyssey's engines, Prajapati said. So if my international colleagues would be so kind as to resolve their differences, perhaps this stalled project can finally go somewhere. Prajapati's arch comments refer to ongoing financial and labor disputes between Odyssey America and Odyssey Euro West, as well as tensions over rare earth deposits in, I'm guessing like in Greenland, because I mean that's where some disputes are going right now, with the US in particular, which is so damn stupid. And then we have Odyssey ready? Question mark. Far Zenith, Odyssey ready for launch eminently. High orbit, April 1, 2065. We're not blind to the irony of making this announcement on April 1st, said Far Zenith spokesman Oswald Dalgard in a live holocast this morning. But I can assure you, this is not a prank. Construction on the Odyssey is complete. All systems appear to be entirely operational. In short, we're ready to go. All that remains is to run comprehensive system tests, especially of the bleeding edge antimatter pulse drives, and resolve various minor logistical details. Oh crap, wasn't it the antimatter pulse drives that failed? The announcement comes a mere 4 years after Far Zenith's purchase of the derelict Odyssey, abandoned in orbit in July 2057. Dalgard wrapped the announcement by fielding questions from press logons. Of the size of the crew, Dalgard said, adult humans, very minimal, 50 to 60 individuals. But of course, the living and breathing folks aren't the real headcount here. That'd be the 200,000 zygotes in cryo storage. When asked about the project launch date, Dalgard answered, we're absolutely going to hit this July date. Obviously, we would have loved another few years to train our crew, but with the situation on Earth deteriorating as it is, we've decided to move aggressively. Maybe a little too aggressively. Asked if he has any parting words for humanity, Oswald nods solemnly. We share the hope that Zero Dawn will reverse Earth's terrible crisis. Either way, we at Far Zenith are committed to doing all we can to ensure that humanity has a future, if not on its home planet, then elsewhere. As to the remaining 76 members of Far Zenith and their identities, Dalgard remained characteristically coy. They're fine, he said. Thanks for asking. Well, they tried. It's a good thing that there was a plan A and a plan B. Always have multiple plans. In the event one fails, you have another. If both fail, well, you're shit out of luck, but at least you tried. Well, that is that. So there's one last thing I want to read. This, The Claim. A small glyph book on cheap parchment illustrated with sketches of arguing Asuram men. A guide to the claim by the well-traveled Aram, our favorite explorer. Often, I fling open the windows of my villa, not only to partake of the scents and sights of the city, but to hear the questions on the streets. Equally often, I hear asked out loud, what to make of these outsiders, these Asuram, who are suddenly our allies or even neighbors? Why do they eat as they do, argue as they do? What is the matter of their heady scent? Why are they always drinking? Like a ray of the sun amid the darkness, a question is best followed to its source. So, for the benefit of the inquisitive, I contrived to join a trading caravan to the claim, at least as far as the closest village beyond the break walls. The claim. It is a muted land where fire smoke hangs heavy in the air among the tall, thin trees, where the ground has not been dug up by the Asuram's ceaselessness search for metal. It is cased in frost, and beneath the frost yet more frost, before stony soil, and worse, soot. Everywhere soot, all pervading. Though I had worn my sturdiest travel silks, there's the problem. It's damn silks. The Karja, they never learn. Keeping them unsoiled proved impossible. Noticing my discomfort, some Asuram washerwomen offered their services, but seeing the shade of the water in their tubs, I declined. Indeed, regard for cleanliness is not an Asuram virtue. Despite its protective walls of piled slate and slouch round stone huts, the village struck me as overly exposed to the elements. The chief elements in the claim being a cold, oily rain and hoarfrost. I've never heard of that word. Even so, the open fires hissed and spat and burned on, and the mood was bustling and lively, as much as you might find in an outbuilding for livestock, for example. What I will endure to bring the light of knowledge to the folk of my tribe. Oh, the humanity. He's going on a very anguish-filled, torturous expedition for the sake of everyone, for the education he will bring back. A true hero, Aram is. The Asuram have no priests or kings, and spit at the mention of such titles, but they defer to the counsel of their wise men, the village aldermen. It seems each settlement elects such men for the purpose of unceasing argument. From dawn until long into the night, they shout over each other on matters of policy and taxation. Come the next morning, a line of villagers will already have formed for the privilege of arguing back. I joined such a line for several hours, while children squealed, birds squawked, and hammering, a cursed endless hammering, echoed over the trampled straw and rain-filled cart ruts. Finally, I was permitted to face the three aldermen and deliver my question. I asked for their opinion on the peace between our tribes, the Sun King Avad's offer of welcome in Meridian itself. Readers, I say asked. But the matter was not so simple, as the Asuram erupted into insults and arguments even before the words had finished leaving my lips. I found myself talked over, shouted down, subjected to seemingly unconnected abuse, and it was only when I raised my voice in return, an invigorating experience, that I was grudgingly answered. Their opinions are muddled and mixed, to say the least, and I will not profane this parchment by transcribing the words used to express them. Suffice it to say that they see the benefit of free trade between our tribes and indeed have flourished from it after long years of war. However, it seems few Asuram that trade outside the claim return their taxes, or even return at all. The aldermen believe they are stolen away by a manner of living that is downright Karja, a phrase they punctuate by spitting upon the floor. In return, I suggested that their mistrust and fear of a civilized way of life was positively Asuram. I could not bring myself to spit indoors. This caused great commotion, after which I was bodily carried from the building upon the shoulders of my hosts and deposited in the midst of a coming-of-age celebration, not for a man, but for some new manner of device. I awoke on a cart arriving at Pitch Cliff. My throat was hoarse, my arms numbed from accepting countless challenges to wrestle, and the taste of an alcohol much like machine oil was still on my tongue. My head ached as if split down the center. Truly, I had risked my life in search of an answer. Is there more to the awesome character than brawling, drinking, and shouting? No. Simply put, dear reader, there is not. But let us hope that the alderman's fears will be proven true, and in time the sun's light and Meridian's glory can temper these rough-hewn folk. I am so glad I waited to read this while I was recording, because this is my first time. And it's hilarious, because the moment I saw it was written by Ahriman, I knew I was in for a tale. I was like, I have to read this one on camera, and I was not disappointed. Now we have the claim for the Osram, the Banor for the Banuk, and then did he name anything for the Nora, or was it just the Nora? I think it was just the Nora, right? So we have the Banuk, the Nora, the Osram. Did he? I don't remember if there was any other ones that he put. So it's the Nora, the Banuk, and I think that might have been it, and the claim. Hello everyone, it's Angelo from the future. So I'm on the verge of doing the Looming Shadow quest when I realized that I forgot to turn in the relics that I collected for the sweet rewards. I was like, all right, let me get to do that. And then I remembered, wait, I forgot to read the Banuk artifact in the episode you're currently watching. Thankfully, I've yet to edit that just yet at the time that I'm recording this, so there's a perfect time for me from the future to interject myself into the past so that you can watch this in the present day. So let's do that right now. Banuk artifact, I name you Tektuk. Upon this peak, I name you my son, that which I could not do before my exile. Signak, chieftain of my Werak, thought your blood was his, but the truth was clear as the color of the sky, painted in your eyes and mine. As I wander alone in this foreign land, it is not Signak's death that wounds me, nor the memory of Ili, your mother, nor even the loss of Snow Sheath Banur, my home, but instead the silence that lay between us, who should have been father and son. I paint my mark here for you, and leave you this offering, though it will never touch the warmth of your hands. My claim. As the months of my exile turn to years, I have thought long on what kept me from claiming you. Such a call could only be settled in blood, by the death of Signak our chieftain, or my own. It is true I feared this battle and his strength, but not as much as I feared its aftermath. The eyes of Ili, your mother, distant and dead, as they beheld the corpse of her mate. Wait, Ili, the mom of the child. Signak is dead. He's the chieftain. Wait, Tektuk, this is an affair, right? Oh no, okay, now it makes sense. That's why Signak thought the child was his, because his mate Ili gave birth to the child. But this whole time it was Tektuk who fathered said child, not Signak. And what, they were going to have a duel to the death, and whoever remains standing is the rightful claimer of the child? That sounds wrong to say, but I guess that's what they were doing. This I could not bear, and so I remained silent, ashamed. But fate is cold and cruel, and my fears came to pass despite me. I paint this mark in sorrow and leave you this offering, though it will never touch the warmth of your hands. I'm guessing that is why he became exiled. He killed the chieftain. Ili became distant, because her mate was killed. Although she did cheat on him with Tech Tuck, it seems. So I don't know what to feel right now. Punishment. In my exile, I often envision your eyes, wide and blue and dumbstruck, as the body of Signac our chieftain was laid before you. The Werek saw how I looked at his mate, Illy, your mother. To them, my guilt was as plain and sharp as the crack of spring ice. As they stripped me bare and left me to die on the glacier, the warmth of life departed me, but not the bitter will to hunt, to strive, to survive. Perhaps to prove I needed no one, least of all those who wronged me. I am only at peace when I paint my marks and craft these offerings to you, though they will never touch the warmth of your hands. So why is this that he feels that these little writings will never reach his son? Is it because he's been exiled, so he believes his son will never go looking after him, or something along those lines? We have them in our possession. Couldn't we give this to the kid? Well, I don't know how long ago this was. For all I know, that child is now a man. But better late than never, right? If he saw the truth in the writings. I cannot confess. There is much I would confess to you, but one thing I cannot. I did not kill Signac, our chieftain, who claimed to be your father. That night I was alone in my tent, drunk and with cold wine, dreaming as I always did of Illy, your mother, and her sunset smile. You will never hear my testament, and my offering will never touch the warmth of your hands. But I paint my mark in the light of truth. I know what I am guilty of and what I am not. I hope against hope that in your heart you know the same. So then what happened? The vision. Falsely accused, exiled, starving and cold, I faltered, this I confess. As the death chills overcame me, I lost will and purpose and felt the bottomless callousness of fate. But then, a vision. I saw in my mind's eye an endless white plain with only a single figure waiting. It was you. And I knew in death, if not in life, I would see you again. When the chills faded, I rose with new hope. I paint my mark here for you in anticipation of our meeting and leave you this offering, though it will never touch the warmth of your hands. Mother. It is only because you will never read these glyphs that I can write them. After a long time of longing, I spent only a single night with Illy, your mother, a memory that I cherished, but she reviled, a burning coal of guilt she carried in her belly. Ah, that is not how you want to describe your soon-to-be kid. I get it. She feels regret for what she did. She probably hates herself, hates Tech Tuck, and hates the seed that is growing within her. Especially because, as we found out, that child is going to have Tech Tuck's eyes, so every time she looks at the kid, she's going to be reminded of the affair. But, I mean, it's not the kid's fault. She's the one who did it willingly, it seems. She wasn't forced into the affair, right? And so I wonder, was her guilt laid bare the night Signac, our chieftain, was killed? Did he discover the truth? Was she forced to defend herself? If only I had been there to stand between them, to actually strike the blow I was punished for. At least then I would have been her champion and the father you deserved for a single moment. I paint this mark with eternal regret, and I leave you this offering, though it will never touch the warmth of your hands. Oh, so she was the one that killed the chieftain. We don't know exactly why, but I guess it's safe to assume that, yeah, he discovered the affair, probably struck her with rage, probably did more, and she fought back. And look at this. Now, everyone's life is ruined here. Even Tech Tuck, who took the blame. I know that we were supposed to turn this in, with someone from Banur who was going to collect them, I guess on behalf of the sun or for history. I don't remember why the reason they wanted to collect this is. But still, I feel like maybe we could have searched for the sun, unless this happened a long time ago. Also, I know I mentioned this. In fact, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it the very first time I came across a metal flower. I am 100% sure that these are poems now. Like they're written in lines of code, but it sounds like they're trying to make a poetic metaphor. Evening wind, water laps the heron's legs. Lightning flash, what I thought were faces are plumes of pompous grass. Orchid breathing into incest, butterfly wings. Watching the river through a window of trees, spring rain falls. It sounds very like rudimentary. Someone who is barely starting, trying to figure out how poems work. It sounds like something that I would write, and I'm obviously not good. That's the point. To tangle or untangle the willow, it's up to the wind. From the mind of a single long vine, 100 opening lives. And then as the sets continue, it's like their skill progresses as well. They start to get better and better. When drawn hennas her hands with the blood of the horizon, let the new bride of the golden veil uncover her shining face. The sky's face has turned dark, don't believe a cloud has come. In the garden, snow changed the raven to a falcon of white. Oh, what designs might the magician of cold display. Like a mirror, the page of the water is bound in ice. The dust of many crumbled cities settles over us like a forgetful doze, but we are older than those cities. We began as a mineral, we emerged into plant life, and into the animal state, and then into being human. And always we have forgotten our former states, except in early spring, when we slightly recall being green again. And then you get to these sets, and then you could tell that they finally found their rhythm. As a fond mother, when the day is o'er, leads by the hand her little child to bed, half willing, half reluctant to be led, and leave his broken playthings on the floor, still gazing at them through the open door, nor wholly reassured and comforted by promises of others in their stead, which, though more splendid, may not please him more. So nature deals with us and takes away our playthings one by one, and by the hand leads us to rest so gently that we go, scarce knowing if we wish to go or stay, being too full of sleep to understand how far the unknown transcends that what we know. Like they start rhyming now. Now the cordial clouds have shut all in, and gently swells the wind to say all's well. The scattered drops are falling fast and thin, some in the pool, some in the flower bell. I am well drenched upon my bed of oats, but see that globe come rolling down its stem. Now like a lonely planet there it floats, and now it sinks into my garment's hem. Like they just got progressively better. They started off very basic, started adding a little more complexity into their poems, and now they even added rhyming. Spake full well in language quaint and olden, one who dwelleth by the castled Rhine, when he called the flowers so blue and golden, stars that in earth's firmament do shine. Stars they are, wherein we read our history, as astrologers and seers of eld, yet not wrapped about with awful mystery, like the burning stars which they beheld. Wondrous truth, and manifold as wondrous, God hath written in those stars above, but not less in the bright flowerets under us stands the revelation of his love. Is this supposed to be Gaia? It would make sense to me, considering that she would have been alone for a very very long time. I highly doubt those subordinate functions were talking back to her if they were supposed to be a part of her. So it would make sense that she whiled her time away writing poetry. And over the years, she started getting a lot better. Like, a lot. Okay, well, that's it from future me. I'm now gonna pass it back on to past me that you are watching presently. At this time, I'm gonna stop trying to rhyme line by line, cause it's a crime that I don't know how to rhyme. So it's just a misery when I try to be a little poetically. Okay, I'm bringing it back to past me to wrap things up. Woo! That was long as hell. Holy crap. Okay, I'm definitely going to be editing this possibly again down to 2 episodes just for peace of mind for myself, because there's a lot that I have to cut out, especially with me running in between the Vantage Points and stuff like that. So I guess maybe it'll be 2 episodes. Well, I mean, I don't know why I always say this out loud. I mean, I'm planning it in my head, but by the time you guys are seeing this, you would already know if this was 1 huge ass episode or 2 shorter ones. Shorter, relatively speaking, because they're like an hour long. Hopefully, the more I keep uploading videos, the better I'll get at editing. Maybe eventually in the future, I'll start uploading these videos, which like even more bit rates to the video file, so it looks even better when you watch these videos, and the editing gets better, and maybe that'll catch people's attention. But for the small amount of people that I do have currently, I thank you guys. Our journey, at least with this game, is almost at an end, but of course there's still more to come, so stay tuned. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm just going to go off on a tangent and talk for like another 30 minutes if I could. It's just refreshing to let it all out once in a while, you know? So anyways, if you guys have enjoyed this, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.